My sister, Cassia, and I accidentally bound to two systems. One was the Flame Sovereign system. The other was the Infinite Space system. Cassia glanced at the glowing symbols and immediately wrinkled her nose. Fire sounds much cooler. You take that one. Without waiting for my answer, she chose the space system. I was left with the fire system. 3 days later, the world froze. A catastrophic snowstorm swept across the globe. Cities disappeared beneath endless blizzards. Temperatures plunged below -60 degrees. The power grid collapsed. Food became scarce. Heat became life itself. Everyone envied me. With the Flame Sovereign system, I could create fire whenever I wished. While others huddled beneath blankets, I lived comfortably. I melted snow for water, cooked food, kept entire shelters warm. Again and again, I saved my sister's life. Meanwhile, Cassia used the space system to store supplies. At first, her abilities seemed useless. But as the years passed, its true value became obvious. Food stored inside her space never spoiled. Medicine remained effective. Fuel stayed fresh. By the 5th year of the apocalypse, she possessed enough resources to support entire communities. Even then, I never envied her. We were sisters. What belonged to her belonged to us both. At least, that's what I believed. Until the day she murdered me. The snowstorm had finally ended. Humanity was beginning to rebuild. As I stood on a rooftop overlooking the recovering city, Cassia suddenly shoved me over the edge. I stared at her in disbelief. Why? She laughed. You should have given Adrian more heat. Adrian was her crush. In our previous life, his family froze to death during the second winter. I had already saved them countless times. But they demanded more. More fire. More food. More protection. When I finally refused, they blamed me for everything. And so did Cassia. If you had tried harder, Adrian would still be alive. You let him die. The wind howled around me as I fell. Then Cassia smiled. Don't worry. In the next life, I'll choose the fire system myself. Darkness swallowed everything. Please select your system. I opened my eyes. The familiar floating screen appeared before me. Across from me, Cassia's eyes widened. Then she smiled. A smile I knew all too well. She had returned too. Without hesitation, she grabbed the Flame Sovereign system. I choose this one. The red symbol merged into her body. Cassia looked at me triumphantly. She believed she had stolen my future. After all, what use was a space system in a frozen apocalypse? But I nearly laughed out loud. Because she had no idea. The ability that truly ruled the apocalypse was never fire. It was space. Chapter 2. The moment the system selection ended, Cassia practically skipped out of the room. I didn't need to guess where she was going. Adrian. In my previous life, she spent years obsessed with him. After being reborn, that obsession had only become worse. This time she firmly believed she had secured victory. After all, she now possessed the fire system, the very power that had allowed me to survive the snow apocalypse. Meanwhile, in her eyes, I was stuck with a glorified storage locker. How ridiculous. I calmly checked the date on my phone. December 14th. 3 days before the blizzard. Still enough time. Very good. Without hesitation, I left the house. My first stop was every supermarket within driving distance. Rice, flour, cooking oil, canned meat, instant noodles, chocolate, bottled water, medicine, blankets, portable heaters, batteries, generators, seeds. Anything remotely useful disappeared into my dimensional space. The cashier stared in shock as entire shopping carts vanished the moment I touched them. Fortunately, everyone assumed it was some kind of transportation service. Nobody thought much of it. Not yet. By sunset, my storage dimension already looked like a massive warehouse. No. A warehouse wasn't enough to describe it. The space seemed endless. Mountains of supplies stretched beyond sight. I smiled. Now this looked familiar. This was how I survived the previous life. Only this time I would prepare far more thoroughly. Meanwhile, Cassia was busy living out her fantasy. When I returned home, I heard her giggling on the phone. Adrian, don't worry. I'll protect you. You won't freeze this time. I nearly laughed. Protect him? The snow hadn't even started yet. She was already playing savior. A few minutes later, she rushed into my room. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. Aurora. What? Can you lend me some money?
No.
Her smile stiffened. Why not? I'm buying things. What things? Things I need. Cassia frowned, immediately suspicious. In our previous life, she knew exactly how important supplies would become. Unfortunately for her, I knew she was reborn. And she didn't know I knew. I'm buying a cabin, I lied. A cabin?
Yeah.
I want a vacation property. She relaxed instantly. In fact, she looked pleased. Clearly she believed I was wasting my money. That's nice. She practically floated out of the room. The moment she left, I heard her calling Adrian again. Don't worry. My sister is wasting all her savings. We'll have more than enough. I rolled my eyes. Stupid. Absolutely stupid. The next day, I purchased something I had never managed to obtain in my previous life.
Land.
A lot of land. Far from civilization. Deep in the mountains. The owner was delighted to sell. To him, it was worthless wilderness. To me, it was priceless. Once he left, I activated my space system. Storage. A silver light swept across the valley. The ground trembled. Then an entire section of fertile farmland vanished. Directly into my dimensional space. The system notification appeared. Storage successful. I grinned.
Perfect.
Over the next 2 days, I stored everything I could find.
Soil. Trees.
Livestock. Farm equipment. Construction materials. Solar panels. Even an entire wooden cabin. Anything useful disappeared into my private dimension. Unlike ordinary storage powers, mine wasn't limited to objects. It could store entire environments. The more I experimented, the more terrifying the ability became. No wonder humanity's strongest survivor in the previous life had been my sister. She simply never understood how to use it properly. 3 days passed quickly. The day of the apocalypse arrived. The sky looked wrong.
Dark. Heavy.
Oppressive. Snowflakes began falling shortly after noon. By evening, the roads were covered. By midnight, the city was buried. Emergency broadcasts filled every screen. Citizens are advised to remain indoors. Avoid unnecessary travel. Extreme weather conditions expected. The warnings continued non-stop. People still weren't worried. They thought it was just a snowstorm. A severe one, perhaps. But still temporary. I knew better, because I had already lived through it. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the power grid failed. The entire city went dark. Screams echoed from nearby apartments. Then silence. Outside, snow continued falling. Thicker.
Heavier.
Endlessly. I sat comfortably inside my room. Watching. Waiting. My phone buzzed.
Cassia.
I answered. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then I heard panic. Aurora. What? The power's out. I know. The heating stopped. That's unfortunate. She froze. Clearly she hadn't expected that response. In my previous life, I would have rushed to help immediately. This time, not a chance. Aurora? What? Can you come over? I smiled.
No.
And hung up. 1 week. Later, the city was dying. Food prices had become meaningless. Money couldn't buy warmth. Money couldn't buy survival. Meanwhile, social media was flooded with videos.
Most were horrifying.
Frozen bodies. Collapsed buildings. Desperate refugees. Then I saw a familiar face. Cassia. She stood in Adrian's apartment, proudly holding a ball of crimson fire. The comments exploded. Fire superpower? Is this real? She can create heat? Oh my God. I leaned back in my chair. There it is.
Just like last time.
Cassia had exposed herself. And, in an apocalypse, nothing attracts predators faster than someone everyone needs. I watched the video spread across the internet. Then I smiled. Because I knew exactly what came next. And this time, I wasn't going to save her. Chapter 3. Within a month, Cassia became famous. Not celebrity famous. Apocalypse famous. The most dangerous kind. Videos of her flame's sovereign system spread throughout the city. Entire apartment complexes knew her name. People called her the Fire Saintess, the Girl of Hope, humanity's savior. The titles made her blush every time she read them. But I only saw a death sentence. In the apocalypse, becoming indispensable wasn't a blessing. It was a curse. Because once people realized they needed you to survive, they would never let you leave. At first, everything went exactly as Cassia imagined. Adrian's family welcomed her warmly. His mother practically treated her like royalty. "Oh, Cassia, you're such a good girl. Our family is so lucky. If it weren't for you, we'd all be frozen." His father nodded repeatedly. "That's right. You're practically family already." Cassia glowed under the praise. Every day she used her fire system to heat their apartment, cook their meals, melt snow into drinking water, even warm neighboring homes. The entire building adored her. She loved every second of it. Meanwhile, I was busy creating a completely different life. Inside my space system, the valley I had stored was flourishing. The farmland remained fertile. The livestock multiplied. The cabin sat beside a clear stream. It was peaceful, quiet, safe. Most importantly, nobody knew it existed. The system had even surprised me with an unexpected feature. Anything living inside the dimension adapted exceptionally well. My chickens laid eggs constantly. The vegetables grew faster than normal. Fruit trees flourished despite the endless winter outside. It was as if the dimension itself nurtured life. Day by day, my private sanctuary became a paradise, while the outside world froze. 3 months into the apocalypse, trouble finally arrived. A knock sounded on Adrian's apartment door, then another, and another. When nobody answered, the knocking turned into pounding. The camera footage circulating online showed dozens of desperate people gathered outside. "We need heat. Our children are freezing. You have to help us." At first, Cassia willingly opened the door. She created fire, heated water, saved everyone she could. People cried tears of gratitude. Some even knelt before her. Cassia was thrilled. This was exactly what she wanted. Admiration,
Praise.
recognition.
Then more people came.
And more. And more. Soon there were hundreds. The entire district depended on her. She barely slept. Every day she exhausted herself creating flames. Every day the demands increased. The gratitude slowly disappeared. Entitlement replaced it. One evening, I watched through online footage as Cassia staggered into Adrian's apartment. Her face was pale. Dark circles hung beneath her eyes. Her hands trembled. Using the fire system continuously was draining her. Just as I expected, the ability wasn't infinite. Nothing was. Adrian's mother immediately frowned. "You're late." Cassia blinked. "I was helping people." "The soup is cold." For a moment, silence filled the room. Cassia looked confused, as though she couldn't understand what she had heard. Then Adrian's father spoke. "Can't you just heat it again? You're wasting time." I nearly laughed. The family that once worshipped her had already begun taking her for granted. 6 months later, food shortages became severe. Heat alone could no longer solve everything. People needed supplies, medicine, fuel, clean water, resources, things the fire system couldn't create. Suddenly, Cassia wasn't as miraculous anymore. One day, she called me. I almost didn't answer. Almost. "Aurora." Her voice sounded desperate. I calmly continued feeding chickens inside my dimensional farm. "What? Where are you?" "Somewhere warm." "Aurora, stop joking." "I'm not joking." Silence. Then she lowered her voice. "You survived somehow. I can tell. So, tell me where you are." I smiled.
No.
Cassia's breathing became heavier. In my previous life, she always came to me whenever she had problems, whenever she needed food, whenever she needed help. She took my support for granted. Now she was discovering what life looked like without it. "Aurora, I'm your sister, That's true. You can't abandon me. I learned otherwise. The line went silent. Then she whispered, You remember. Of course she knew. Only a reborn person would understand. Only someone who remembered the previous life would hear the accusation hidden in my words. I leaned back in my chair. Yes. Cassia stopped breathing for a moment. You knew? From the very beginning. You knew I reincarnated? Yes. A long silence followed. Then she finally spoke. You're still angry about that? I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was absurd.
She had murdered me.
And she thought I should be over it. Aurora, I made a mistake. You pushed me off a 30-story building. I was emotional. You killed me. Silence. Then she spoke again. But we're sisters. The shamelessness was unbelievable. I ended the call, then blocked her number. For the next hour I laughed so hard tears came to my eyes. Some people never changed. Even after death. Even after reincarnation. Cassia still believed everyone existed to forgive her, to save her, to support her, just like before. Unfortunately for her, the real nightmare was only beginning, because while people were losing faith in her fire system, they had started hearing rumors. Rumors that somewhere in the city existed a mysterious survivor. Someone who never lacked food, never lacked medicine, never lacked supplies. Someone whose resources seemed endless. And soon, those rumors would lead straight back to Cassia and Adrian's building. And when desperate people ran out of options, they would need someone to blame. A scapegoat. A target. Someone they could rob. Someone they could hate. And Cassia had already painted a giant bullseye on her own back. Chapter 4. The fourth winter arrived. The snow showed no signs of stopping. Entire districts had vanished beneath layers of ice. Most survivors no longer talked about rescue. They no longer talked about rebuilding civilization. They only talked about surviving one more day, one more meal, one more night. Cassia's situation grew worse with every passing month. The Fire Saintess title had long disappeared. Nobody called her humanity's savior anymore. Now they called her something else. The Fire Mule, the living furnace. To them, she wasn't a person. She was a tool, a machine that produced heat. Nothing more. The worst part, Adrian's family encouraged it. Every day strangers arrived carrying frozen water containers.
Heat this. Melt this.
Cook this. Warm my room. My child is sick. My parents are freezing. Help me. Help me. Help me. The requests never ended. At first Cassia still smiled. Then she started forcing herself to smile. Eventually she stopped smiling altogether. One evening she collapsed, completely unconscious. Adrian carried her inside. His mother clicked her tongue. Useless. His father nodded. She's becoming weaker every year. The words shocked even Adrian. Mom. What? She's exhausted. So. His mother crossed her arms. If she can't use her ability, what's the point of keeping her around? Watching through one of the building cameras I had secretly accessed years ago, I nearly applauded. There it was. The truth. The moment the mask finally cracked. The family never loved Cassia. They loved what she could provide. Nothing else. When Cassia woke up, she overheard everything. I saw her standing behind the kitchen doorway. Frozen.
Pale.
Listening. For the first time in either lifetime, reality finally slapped her across the face. But she still wasn't ready to let go. People rarely abandon their delusions in a single day. The next morning she confronted Adrian. Do you love me? Adrian nearly choked on his food. The silence lasted several seconds. Far too long. Cassia's expression gradually changed. Answer me. Adrian avoided her eyes. We're in the apocalypse. That's not an answer. Another silence. Then finally, I care about you. Cassia's face turned white, because both of them knew what that meant. In their previous life, Adrian had never loved her. In this life, he still didn't. The only difference was that now she was finally noticing. That evening she tried calling me again. The number was blocked. She borrowed another phone. I answered. Aurora. I immediately recognized her voice. What? For several seconds, she remained silent. Then she asked a question I never expected. Were they always like this? I leaned back in my chair. Outside my cabin window, vegetables swayed gently beneath artificial sunlight. Chickens pecked happily at the ground. My little world felt impossibly distant from hers. Yes. The answer was immediate. No hesitation. No pity. No comfort. Just truth. Cassia laughed bitterly. A broken laugh. I was such an idiot. Yes. I killed you for them. Yes. I ruined everything. Yes. Each answer struck like a knife, because she knew they were true. For a moment, I thought she might finally understand. Then she ruined it. Aurora, let me join you. I laughed. Actually laughed. The audacity was unbelievable. You want me to save you? We're sisters. You said that before pushing me off a building. Aurora.
No.
I ended the call. Again. Days later, another disaster struck. One far worse than hunger. Far worse than cold. People had finally run out of hope. A rumor began spreading through the district. Someone was hoarding food. Someone had enough supplies to survive comfortably. Someone was hiding resources while everyone else starved. Naturally, people wanted a target. Someone to blame.
Someone to rob.
The problem was that nobody knew who this mysterious hoarder was. So they started making assumptions. And eventually those assumptions landed on the most obvious suspect.
Cassia.
After all, she had survived longer than most. Adrian's family still had food. They still had fuel. They still had supplies. Not much, but enough to attract attention. Enough to spark envy. The crowd arrived 3 nights later. Nearly 100 people. Armed with pipes, axes, kitchen knives, anything they could find. I watched through the camera feed. Adrian's father looked outside and immediately panicked. Oh no. His mother's face lost all color. The crowd was already pounding on the entrance.
Boom, boom, boom.
Open the door. We know you're hiding food. Share it. You owe us. The words sounded familiar. Very familiar. Because in the previous life, Cassia and Adrian's family had stood among similar crowds, demanding resources from others, demanding sacrifices, demanding generosity. Now they stood on the opposite side of the door. The irony was beautiful. Inside the apartment, chaos erupted. What do we do? Call someone. Who? There isn't anyone. Civilization had collapsed years ago. There were no authorities, no police, no rescue teams, no one coming to save them. The crowd broke through the building entrance. The sounds echoed through the hallway. Closer, closer, closer. Then something unexpected happened. Adrian's mother pointed directly at Cassia. It's her. Everyone froze, including Cassia. His mother's eyes were wild, desperate, terrified. It's her fault. She's the one with a fire system. Take her. Leave us alone. Cassia stared at her, unable to believe what she was hearing. The woman she had protected for years, fed for years, saved for years, had just offered her up as a sacrifice. Then Adrian spoke, and somehow that hurt even more. Maybe you should go. Cassia's face shattered. What? If they take you? He couldn't even finish. He couldn't look her in the eye. That was answer enough. Outside, the apartment door exploded inward. The crowd surged inside. And for the first time since her rebirth, Cassia truly understood what it felt like to be abandoned. Exactly the way she had abandoned me in our previous life. And this time, there would be nobody coming to save her.
Chapter 5.
There was nobody coming to save Cassia. Not Adrian. Not his parents. Not the neighbors she had spent years helping. Nobody. The crowd surged into the apartment like starving wolves. Furniture shattered. Cabinets were ripped open. Every bag of rice. Every can of food. Every bottle of water.
Gone.
People fought each other over crumbs. Over scraps. Over things that wouldn't have been worth a second glance before the apocalypse. Cassia tried to escape. The moment she stepped into the hallway, Someone recognized her. It's the fire girl. Grab her. She can make heat. Don't let her get away. Panic filled her eyes. Flames burst from her palms. The crowd recoiled. But unlike years ago, nobody was afraid anymore. People who had gone hungry for weeks no longer feared fire. They feared starvation. And starvation was stronger than fear. Watching through the cameras, I saw Cassia flee down the stairwell. The mob followed. For 3 days she hid throughout the building. For 3 days people hunted her. Whenever they found her, they forced her to use the fire system. Heat this.
Cook that.
Melt snow. Boil water. Again. And again. And again. By the 4th day she could barely stand. The fire system drained more than energy. It drained vitality. I knew that from my previous life. Every system had a price. Cassia simply never bothered learning hers. Eventually, she returned to Adrian's apartment. Desperate. Broken.
Starving.
She pounded on the door. Adrian, please. I just need somewhere to stay. The door opened slightly. For a moment, hope appeared in her eyes. Then Adrian tossed a stale piece of bread onto the floor. Take this and leave. The door slammed shut. Cassia stood motionless. Snow drifted through the broken hallway windows. The bread landed in a dirty puddle.
She stared at it for a long time,
then slowly bent down and picked it up. For the first time in either lifetime, she cried. Not dramatic sobs. Not screams. Just silent tears. The kind that came when a person finally understood the truth. Inside my dimensional sanctuary, life continued peacefully. The orchards were thriving. The livestock had multiplied several times over. Fresh vegetables filled my storage sheds. I had enough food for decades. Sometimes I would watch the outside world through my phone. Not because I cared, because it reminded me why I had chosen this path. Months passed. The city became a graveyard. The snow continued falling. The survivors continued shrinking in number. Cassia became little more than a ghost. People no longer hunted her because she was useful. They hunted her because they hated her. The fire saintess. The woman who had once charged people for survival. The woman who had profited while others starved. Many remembered. None forgave. One day I received a video call.
Cassia.
I almost ignored it. Almost. Then curiosity won. I answered. The woman on the screen barely resembled my sister. Her cheeks were hollow. Her hair was tangled. Her eyes were sunken. Aurora. Her voice cracked. You're alive. Obviously. For several seconds, she simply stared. Then she saw something behind me. A basket of fresh fruit. Healthy green plants. A warm cabin. Life. Real life. Her expression twisted. Not with joy. Not with relief. With envy. The same envy that had destroyed her in the previous life. The same envy that had made her push me off that rooftop. You really have everything. Yes. You never suffered. I suffered once. The meaning wasn't lost on her. For a moment she looked ashamed. Then the shame disappeared, replaced by anger. If you had helped me. I laughed. Actually laughed. After everything. She still hadn't learned. If I had helped you? You abandoned me. You murdered me. And now you're blaming me again? Cassia's face turned white. You always had a choice. I looked directly into her eyes. You could have left Adrian. You could have stopped helping people. You could have prepared properly. You could have survived. But every decision you made was your own. For the first time, she had no response. None. The call disconnected. That was the last time I ever spoke to her. Years passed. The snowstorm finally began weakening. Just as it had in my previous life. The end was approaching. But unlike before, I wasn't trapped in a frozen apartment counting scraps of food. I was harvesting crops, expanding my sanctuary, living. One afternoon, while checking an old camera feed, I spotted a familiar figure. Cassia. She lay in the corridor outside Adrian's apartment. Too weak to move. Too weak to stand. The hallway was empty. No one helped her. No one even looked at her. Hours later, Adrian finally opened his door. Cassia weakly reached toward him. He stared for a few moments, then quietly closed the door again. That was the end. No dramatic farewell. No apology. No redemption. Just silence. The same silence she had shown me when I begged for my life on that rooftop. A few months later, the system notification finally appeared. The eternal blizzard event has ended. Golden sunlight broke through the clouds. For the first time in nearly a decade, snow began melting. The ice retreated. Humanity's nightmare was over. I stepped out of my sanctuary and looked toward the rising sun. The world was ruined.
Cities were gone.
Millions had died. But I was alive. Not because of luck. Not because someone saved me. Because I had relied on myself. As the warm sunlight touched my face, another notification appeared. Infinite space system evolution complete. I frowned. Then the dimensional space behind me expanded endlessly. Mountains, forests, rivers,
Fields.
an entire world unfolding before my eyes. Only then did I finally realize something. The space system had never been a storage ability. It had been the seed of a new world all along. And this time, nobody would ever be able to take it from me.